Hey guys, what's up? Steve here with the Breakout Project. I don't know where you're at, but I'm in York, Pennsylvania. And as Kid Rock says, I ain't seen the sun in, what does he say, 3 damn days? Well, we haven't seen it in about 4. It's been miserable. Anyway, I came across this interview on Nino's Corner.tv, and Nino Rodriguez is a podcaster, and as a fellow podcaster, it is my obligation to watch and to review other podcasters' interviews and what they're saying, and then present that information to you. So I don't have the connections with this gentleman that he is interviewing, and I'm looking up at my screen here. His name is Josh Abram. I think you might find this interesting. I just posted on one of my social media accounts asking about do you know anyone that is a Mason? Now, I'm not talking about the type that works with stone. Okay. I'm talking about Freemason, right? I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a group, men only, where they are, I guess, in search of the truth from what they call it. There's different levels of being a Mason. And I don't know much about it. I do know, well, at least I should say, I think I don't know anyone that is a Mason. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just never asked the right questions. But I think that you will find this interesting because if you know someone that is a Mason, and it said, I don't know anybody, but they might be the nicest people in the world. They might be the most kind-hearted people in the world, like this gentleman, Josh Abram will say. Uh, but there's an underlying issue here that, if someone in your family is a Mason, or if a friend is a Mason, or if I guess, a partner is a Mason, I think you might want to watch this and take nothing of what I present you with as fact, as truth. Uh, Everyone has to find their own version of truth, right? As I say, if you've been following me for a while on my social media sites, truth is in the mind of the beholder. Just because I believe something that to be true doesn't mean you need to believe something to be true. And that's what's great about the human being. We all have different versions of truth, and we all have different ideas, and we all have different consciousness that we abide by. So check this out. It's interesting. It's about an hour and let's see here, 20 minutes long. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's long, but it's once you hear this information, you'll never forget it. Instead of watching the mainstream media news cycle when you get home from work or whatever, this is what you should be watching. As far as I'm concerned, and as far as a lot of others are concerned, the mainstream media is dead. DEAD. They cannot be resuscitated, okay? They're they're presenting you with 90% fiction, right? And it's sad. It's just the world that we live in. And with that being said, citizen journalism and alternative media is certainly where it's at. All right. I can guarantee you, if not sooner, that within the next 5 years, the alternative media, basically this stuff that I'm doing here, will supersede the mainstream media. Now, the problem with the alternative media is that, of course, they don't have the funding, right? They don't have, how the media makes the money is through advertisements and whatnot on their stations, right? You get a corporation that wants to advertise, pays that company, millions of dollars to do advertisements during the top shows. And in return, that corporation hopes that through their advertisements, they generate business to them, through the means of, it's called marketing is what it's called. So the alternative media and the citizen journalisms, they don't have that. And there's a reason why they don't have that. It's simply is because we're not on the sides of the corporations. We're on the, well, now I shouldn't say that. We're on the sides of the good corporations. We're on the sides of the corporations who basically want to stay out of people's lives, stay out of people's business, and just present the product or service. Okay, stay out of the politics, stay out of the left versus right, stay out of the transgender versus non-transgender, stay out of the woke. I mean, the gay versus the non-gay. Just stay out of it, right? But when a corporation decides that they want to push an agenda through their ESG uh, programs and everything like that, well, that's when the people start getting involved. And until this seismic shift that is going to occur, at least in my opinion, over the course of the next 5 years, if not sooner, the corporations and the moneymakers will be with the mainstream media. But once they realize that that seismic shift occurs, well, there's no stopping that. There's no turning back. And then it will be interesting to see if the alternative media, and I'm sure many of them will, because a lot of the people do this for money. I don't necessarily do it for any monetary value whatsoever. I simply do it because I have a vision of what needs to be done in this world in order to protect our future generations that are coming up after us. Okay. That's the only reason why I'm doing it. Now, if monetary um, opportunities come along and I'm not going to need to sell myself out to do so, well, then sure, why not? But as far as I'm concerned, whether I was getting, a penny or $1,000 per show, that's not going to change the way that I view life. That's not going to change my agenda of what I'm trying to present to the people. I said I want you to break out of your traditional means and methods of thinking. And me presenting you with these series of interviews that you may not have access to because, of course, as I said, as a podcaster, I pay for some of these services. Now, some of these other podcasters, they put them on their free sites. Some don't. It's just a matter of what could be said and what can't be said on the free sites. So I haven't checked yet, but Nino Rodriguez also has a channel on Rumble, which I highly suggest that you subscribe to. I started following Nino probably about 2 years ago, and he has a great story. I can relate to him a lot. He was an athlete, and he was a boxer, and he's actually sober now too, which is great. So I think is going on about 3 years so being sober. I'm going on about 5 years being sober. So we relate on the same frequencies as far as that goes. We also have the same visions on things. Now, just because he agrees with something doesn't necessarily mean that I need to agree with something. So there is a lot of stuff out there that that is above and beyond, like the stuff that he doesn't push it, but he interviews. Right? He has some people on his shows which are above and beyond. Okay, at least in my opinion, anyway. Now, these people may be 100% right, or these people may be 100% wrong. There's a lot of psyops in this world, folks, and sadly, it's meant to be that way. It has to be that way for at least the time being. Okay, and even the good guys are pushing psyops, and it's sadly it's to confuse, and it's your job to decipher what's right from wrong. And, like I said before, truth is in the mind of the beholder. So I'm going to shut up now. Now I'm going to be doing stuff in the background. Okay. I'm going to just let this play. As far as the audio goes, I'm playing it through my speakers. So I have the volume up as high as I possibly can. It's actually very annoying to me as I'm sitting here trying to look at some trading opportunities for this afternoon, but this is as high as the volume can go. So if you're having problems with it and hearing it, I apologize. I've done some tests. I think it will be fine, but I just wanted to lay that out there before I do so. So now that I've taken up 10 minutes of your time, and this interview is an hour and 20 minutes long, that means that if you've watched this all the way to the end, that you would have spent an hour and 30 minutes with me. And I greatly appreciate that. All credit to Nino here, Nino Rodriguez at Nino's Corner TV. And you can also find him on Rumble, and you can also find him on YouTube. So let me go ahead and shut my mic off, put his screen up, and we'll let it ride. Take care, guys. And also, I may chime in every once in a while if I find something that I want to talk about, but I've already listened to this. So this will be my second time listening to it. So it's actually just going to be a second time overview for me. We'll see you.
All right, folks, welcome to Nino's Corner.tv. I got a very special guest today, Joshua Abraham. Joshua Abraham, his father, was your father Larry Abraham?
Yes, sir.
Is that, I got it right?
Yeah, Larry H.
Wow.
Abraham. Yeah.
Is the author of the book None Dare Call It Conspiracy. I've heard of this book many, many years ago. I've never read it, but I got to tell you, I've heard nothing but good stuff about this book. Even Juan O'Savin was saying, "Oh man, he knew your father," he said. So I was kind of surprised by that. But Juan ran in all those circles. None dare call it conspiracy. It's like the manual or the starting kit of conspiracies, and it's well known throughout the conspiracy community, the truth community, the patriot community. And I'm with right now Joshua Abraham, who also infiltrated the Masons, and we're going to talk about that as well. Let's first talk about your father and the book None Call It Conspiracy. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. Sorry, my lighting and everything is not up to snuff, but I'm over here in Oxnard, California with my fiance, and I originally reside in Texas, San Antonio, where I would be able to have a lot better setup, but this is all I can put out right now. So thank you for having me.
It doesn't matter. The truth is what my audience is after. The truth is all I want. So I want to hear your side of the story, man. So first of all, your father is the author of the book None Dare Call It Conspiracy.
Yeah,
was he a Mason? Was he anything like that, or was he? What's going on? Why would your dad even write this book?
Well, my dad, he was really into research, and he was really into this occult research, and he's a big historian, and he was a big part of the John Birch Society, but he actually left the John Birch Society in the mid 80s when he found out they got infiltrated by some pretty prestigious, powerful Zionists and Freemasonry. And he just wanted to figure out what was going on, because during the 60s, we saw a lot of prominent people speaking out against the war at the time. And he was a huge fan of Malcolm X. And when Malcolm X got assassinated, along with, both the Kennedys and Martin Luther King, he really was wondering, like, what is really happening? And after years of research, he came up with the hypothesis and pretty much connected the dots that there is this global cabal of Zionists and Freemasonry and other satanic factions that are in the process of creating a new world order, global government. And he was given a speech in the late 60s about what he found, and Gary Allen approached him and said, "Hey, I want to write a book about your research." And my father goes, "Yeah, that's fine. Just put my name on the cover and let's go at it as a team." So they wrote a very powerful book that was the first to expose this new world order. And then my father wrote the sequel, Call It Conspiracy. And then his third book, which is my personal favorite, The Greening. And The Greening is a book that pretty much lays out how these Zionists are going to use saving the planet and environmentalism along with big tech to create this global communist government.
That's scary. That is so scary. When you think about the JFK assassination, a lot of people that's imprinted on everyone's minds, but we're not, you got to lump in there Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, the other Kennedy. I mean, that was a time frame where they just took them all out. They were changing or manipulating human consciousness. And these people that were speaking out and actively changing human consciousness, they just took them out and scared everybody. That's how you shut people up, and they're doing that now actually with canceling people, arresting people, attempting to assassinate people. I mean, we're at it again. Communism didn't go anywhere. It's strong, and it has a foothold in America, and always has. And that's the government we're going towards, and it's these secret societies that control everything. Correct?
Yeah, and what people really need to understand, which I can't stress enough, is that there's the Zionist faction that created communism. You know, they talk about Marxism and all that, but let's call Karl Marx by his real name. That's Moses Mordecai Levy. This is a Zionist from Germany who changed his name to kind of fit in better in his society of Germany when he was living at the time. And we need to really take into the strong fact that everything that's happening to our world today, whether it be open borders, this conflict between races, the falling out of the economy, and the rise of communism into a global government, this is all perfectly printed and given a step-by-step point in a book called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was published in 1903. And if people would sincerely take the time out of their day to at least read it or listen to an audiobook, the whole thing, they will realize who is doing this to us, what the agenda is, and why this social chaos and social construct is being constructed in such the manner that we see today, because it's all printed out in the protocols of the elders of Zion, point by point, open borders, sexual immorality for the children, social distortion between whites and blacks and other minorities. Like, this is all a part of their plan. And if we really take into the fact that we actually know who is doing this to us, and it's not what
Who is
other
doing
people
this to
say.
us? It's the Zionists. Is that what you're saying?
The Zionists, these Talmudic Zionists that hide behind a group of people called the Torah Jews. It's the one group in the book of Revelations that Jesus warned us about. He didn't warn us about what Alex Jones calls globalists. He didn't warn us about Jesuits. He didn't warn us about the Vatican. He warned us about the synagogue of Satan. And that is what the Zionist faction completely is.
Can you explain that a little more? The Zionist Jew, is this not all Jews, just the Zionist Jews, or is it all Jews?
Yes. What happened is that back in the 1920s and 30s, there was a schism between the Jewish faith of this group of people that wanted to go to Palestine. And this mainly came from the Khazarian Eastern European faction of the Jewish faith. And what happened is that these Orthodox Jews really stood up and they said, hey, we're not supposed to go back to Palestine until we receive our coming Mashiach. And these Zionist Khazarians who hide behind this group called the Jews, you know, they say they're Jews, but they're not. These are highly involved Luciferians who read the Babylonian Talmud and who believe in child sacrifice. In fact, over 20 kids in the Middle Ages were canonized saints because of these Jewish extremist Zionist bloody sacrifices called blood libel. They were actually canonized saints because the sacrifices were so horrific. And what we really need to understand is that when people say, oh, it's the Jews, that's not true. When people say, like, oh, it's just this group of people, it's not them. It's this extremist group within Judaism called Zionism that is doing all this to us, and we really need to make the distinction.
So it's this one sector, this one, I guess it's a pretty large group right now that's manipulating all they're controlling the strings, right? They're the men behind the curtain, basically.
Yeah, some people will call them the Shabbat cult. Even Joe Biden, our president, he said that he's a Zionist, and you don't even have to be Jewish to be a Zionist, which is absolutely true. And what the
when I have someone like Dustin Nemos come on, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, he comes on and says all Jews are demons. I mean, he goes he goes full retard on this stuff. But I let him have the floor. He'll debate anybody. He'll even debate you. But he stands up firm in his ground, and he says all Jews, and I can't get with that. I just don't believe that. I don't believe we lump everyone into the same group. I can't do that. I just will not do that. But he will, till he's blue in the face, will say it's all Jews. You're saying no, it's not all Jews. It's a sector controlling it's a small group called the Talmud Jews or the Zionists.
The Talmudic Zionist Jews. And I can understand where he's coming from, because a lot of people make the argument, which I see a lot of validity to, whether they be, you know, Talmudic or Zionist Jews, whether they're two opposite ends of the same religion, they tend to always, be on team Jew, whether or not.
How long have they been controlling this?
I would say the real kickoff to it was with Bernard Baruch and Theodor Herzl with the Swiss conference they had in 1897 when they pretty much developed their plan. And some would say that before that, when Rothschild approached Adam Weishaupt to create the Bavarian Illuminati and to do the takeover of the world according to the protocols of Zion, which were not published at that time, but they were they knew what they were point by point. Some would say it goes even deeper than that. Like there's a lot of high level degree Masons that I met, and they would say it goes all the way back to Emperor Nimrod, and even sometimes before that to the days of Atlantis. Whether or not it goes on any timeline, my personal belief with what I've seen and what I've been told and what I've read in research is that this goes back all the way to Atlantis, how they tried to take over the world with Atlantis, but then it sunk. And then they tried again with Emperor Nimrod, and then that was distorted by the Lord's heavenly angels. And then now we're going into it again for the third time. And if you really know your occultic research, you would know that this third time around is completely symbolic of the occult, because everything works in threes in Freemasonry, which is basically the baseline of all occult secret societies. Freemasonry, even up to the highest degree of 33rd, and I've been told that there are degrees above that, but Freemasonry is basically like elementary school for the occult in the grand scheme of it all. Like there are so many things above Freemasonry that we don't even know about, but the ones we do, whether it be the Rosicrucians or the Order of the Golden Dawn or the OTO, Ordo Tempi Orientes, all these other factions above it are so much more involved with what Freemasonry claims to be in, but it really isn't. It's kind of a screening process.
But these Talmud Zionist Jews are the core of this.
Yeah, and it's very stated very clearly in the Protocols of Zion how they will use Freemasonry and the members of Freemasonry to carry out this global government and this Protocols of Zion plan. And it's really surprising to me how InfoWars now has a guy named Chase Geyser hosting shows who's a 32nd degree Mason. And it's just really interesting to me. Like when I did my first interview ever on any platform was back in 2012 with Alex Jones. And I did my interview with him. And then for the next month, I was pretty much just hit with so many independent researchers giving me all these facts about how Alex Jones is basically in on it, and I was really surprised.
I've had a interview with Alex Jones, and I like the guy, right? I like the guy. He even invited me to come host one of the shows out there in InfoWars. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. But I've heard it too. I've heard that he's, I've heard a lot of stuff actually that he's, he's been infiltrated or that he is, I mean. The Mossad, I've heard different stuff. I have no proof on any of it. It's just hearsay, but and I've even asked Alex to his face. I go, are you, not like you would answer truthfully, but I mean, are you telling me that it looks like he's been compromised, or has he always been compromised? Like, what's the deal with Alex?
Well, I've talked to his old producer, Rob Jacobson, who worked with him for 12 years, and I've had a personal conversation with his ex-wife, Kelly. And also, in a lot of Masonic lodges, they just laugh. They're just like, oh, yeah, the Jones family have come from a long line of Texas Masons, and they kind of point at me.
Are you saying Alex Jones is a Mason?
Well, they were pointing this out to me. Like every time you look on his set, look for that little skull dagger instead of owl's wings on the set. Like that's pretty much the ritual of the Master Mason, the symbolism and the objects used in the Master Mason ritual. And I saw those three things at a lot of high 32nd degree Masonic libraries during my Masonic infiltration, and I've seen those trinkets before in Masonic libraries, and they're the same thing that he has on the set of Infowars.
So
And
what's Alex Jones' job then? I got to contribute a lot of my awakening process to him back in the day.
yeah,
But
sure.
is he like purposely leading people astray? What I mean, what would be
Oh
his?
yes. Oh
So
yes.
what's his job? What would be his job? Like what does Alex Jones do? What's he doing?
He's just, he's tending to a certain media demographic. Simple. It's just like, it's no different than CNN or Fox News. It's just a certain media demographic of people who realize, the left and the right are two wings of the same bird. But at the same time, you know, he's calling these people who are doing this to us globalists. And man, you can't call them anything more vague. You might as well call them universalists. It
Yeah.
just sends you round and round and round. And he doesn't actually pinpoint like the direct enemy that's doing to us, but the greatest researchers in the world, including my father and my personal favorite, Eustace Mullins, will tell you through their research that it is Zionism at the very core. And I really find it interesting how even Julian Assange said, forget Russia. The real enemy to the world and America is Israel and the Israeli lobby. And we really need to take into effect and really realize that the people in our government are were what Eustace Mullins calls Shabbos Goy, and Shabbos Goy are pretty much Gentiles, or what the Talmud and the Zionists call Goyim, human cattle. They call them Shabbos Goy, who are bought and paid off agents to support Israel and its borders and its protection more than any other nation, including our own. And it's really sad how this whole escalation in Ukraine is a direct result of Zionism. And it's no surprise, I think, that the Ukrainian coat of arms is the same symbol as the Khazarian mafia that comes from the land of Khazaria.
Border filled.
And I just find it very interesting how all this is linking up to ultimately get the whole world under the control of the Zionist bankers, with Jerusalem being the capital of this global government. And that's what really
So Alex
woke me
Jones,
up.
in a sense, is just sending out smoke and mirrors and keeping us distracted. Not really, stating the problem, but not saying you're going
Oh,
straight for the jugular. You're saying
yes.
Talmud Zionists.
Yeah, and he doesn't really debate a lot of people, and for obvious reasons, because I think in the past 10 years, maybe 20, like he's only debated like two people with an honest 2 hour debate, and that was Dr. David Duke and Nick Fuentes, and both of them just ripped him to shreds for the proof of exactly what I'm talking about. And I really give a
How
lot
is
of
someone like
credit.
Nick Fuentes even alive if he's going after these going after
Yeah,
the most
it's
powerful people in the world? I mean, I have questions.
well, so do I, and I have a really good friend who's a great researcher, and she was telling me how she's actually got a lot of proof how Nick Fuentes is being used by a three-letter agency to add to this social distortion. Because keep in mind, the Theodore Herzl and Bernard Baruch even said at the Swiss conference in 1897, like their best friend to accomplish this Zionist plan is the anti-Semite, and those are their best friends. And hence the funding of the Nazi uprising from these Zionist banks. They are using anti-Semitism to kind of like be the other flip side of the coin, to be like, oh, through anti-Semitism,
But we're not
we can
saying
achieve our
anything about the
goals.
Jews. We're just saying this one faction. That's what we're
Yes.
saying, right? That's what you're saying. You're
Yeah.
not Dustin. You're not doing Dustin Emos. You're saying it's just this one faction. I mean, you could talk to Roseanne Barr, and I think she'll even agree with this. You know what I mean? Aren't you going on her show? Didn't I connect you guys?
I haven't received an invitation or anything like that from her.
I'll make this. I'll put you. I think she said she wanted you on, but we'll talk about that in a second. But it's just this one faction that controls it all, correct?
Yes, and my grandfather on my father's side was from northern Israel, southern Lebanon area, who came from a line of Judaism belief and then converted to Christianity, and then he moved here to America. And so I can say myself, I come from, my bloodline comes from that area, and I'll be the first to call out my own tribe and tell people that, you can't link everyone in on this. That's what they want you to do. The powers that be,
Right.
they
So
want
that's
you
what
to
I
do
think
that.
Kanye West was used for.
Well, I think Kanye West, made a very powerful point, that it's not all of them. It's just this certain faction that is into the Talmud. I mean, if you study and read the Talmud, it will shock you. I mean, the whole acceptance of pedophilia, the whole acceptance of usury and interest in loans. Like, there is a lot of disturbing things in the Babylonian Talmud, which are preached in the synagogues today. And a lot of Orthodox Jews, when I was living in Los Angeles, I talked to a lot of Jews about this, and they told me a lot how they do not support the Zionist apartheid state of Israel, which Alex Jones went on record and said he does. Like, they do not support it because it's not their time to go back. But what I've been told by a lot of Orthodox Jews is that there was this schism in the 30s and 1920s and 30s, how these Zionists, and these non-Zionists had kind of like a debate. We're not supposed to go back to Palestine yet. And then after the Holocaust, which was fully funded by the Zionist banks, which is absolutely provable through the work of Eustace Mullins, who actually, went to the Library of Congress and wrote a fantastic book about this called The New History of the Jews. He was also the guy who wrote
Explain that. Explain the Holocaust to me. What did it now? I've talked to a few people who said it never even happened.
Well, it did happen. It just wasn't 6 million. The original number was 600,000. They just, over the years, they just keep boosting up and boosting up. And with the original, count of 600,000, what the Zionists did, which funded that whole operation, that was to get global support to one day achieve Palestine, because people need to understand that that really did happen, but just not in the veracity in the numbers that they're claiming now. And it's really interesting to me how even in Canada, you can be arrested for speaking out against like the Holocaust narrative. So it absolutely did happen, but just not with 6 million. The original number was 600,000. It's really interesting to me how in the Jewish Encyclopedia in 1934 said there were only a little over 3 million Jews in all of Europe at that time. So it's just, it kind of really wakes me up to the fact that they are using this Holocaust to always give it, their ace up their sleeve and to be like, oh, this happened to us. But what they don't tell you is that they fully funded that. And it's in the Protocols of Zion, how they will use their own people as a sacrifice to get what they want ultimately. And that is a big reason why we see Israel to this day the most COVID vaccinated country in the world, because these Zionists are using this group of people to take suspicion off themselves. And we really need to understand that.
Explain some things that I would find in the Talmud, like pedophilia.
Yeah, you'll find pedophilia. You would find this undeniable hate for Jesus Christ, how his mother was a whore of carpenters, and how Jesus is in hell right now burning in excrement. And you will find how the non-Jews, the Goyim, are just, they're human cattle built and only to stay alive, to fulfill their needs, to do the work, to do all the hard labor, to ultimately make them rich. Like, they claim anti-Semitism.
So they look at everybody else. Everybody else is just.
Oh yeah, yes. They say in the Talmud there are two main enemies: are the Muslim Brotherhood or the Muslim faith, and the white European race of the descendant of white European race. Those are their two main enemies in the
Why
Talmud.
the white European race?
Well, I think because they stand in their way of their ultimate goal for the Zionist plan. And people need to understand, in Palestine, before this whole Zionist uprising in the 40s, when they made this Balfour Declaration, to kind of sucker Great Britain into, doing all their dirty work for them. In the land of Palestine, Muslims and Jews, man, they had no problems. It was funny how we even have historical fact how Muslim families would babysit the children of Jewish families in Palestine before this Zionist uprising in the 40s. But it's a sad result because of World War One that was funded both sides by the Zionist banks. When Germany in the first 2 years was kicking the living crap out of the Allies because of the rising up or the exposure of the U-boat that was just taking out every single food source. Like pretty much England was sitting there with less than a month's food supply, and they were ready to surrender. And the Germans, they came to them and they were like, hey, let's just call it off and just go back to everything the way it was before. And they were seriously considering that. But the Zionist banks came to England and said, hey, wait a minute now, you can still win this and we'll get America involved, but we'll make you a deal. You got to clear out the land of Palestine for us, and we'll put this in writing called the Balfour Declaration. And through that gave them the edge the financial edge they needed to finally defeat the German Empire at that time. And it's just really sad how people think, oh, Germany's always hated the Jews. No, like during the Middle Ages, when the Jews would go into a country of Europe and just be accused of numerous accounts of blood libel and be accused of numerous accounts of infiltrating children's education and government and financial systems. They got kicked out of these places for very good reasons.
Hitler be the most misunderstood person in the world?
I strongly believe he's one of them, along with Stalin. Yeah, I strongly believe Hitler.
So they were fighting against these Talmud Jews, basically.
Well, people, I used to think that too, but then, looking at Eustace Mullen's work, when the information he got out of the Library of Congress is that Hitler wanted the same thing as the Zionists. He wanted the New World Order too. So it's no surprise how
everyone's after power. Everyone's
after power. And it's no surprise how he actually teamed up with these Zionists. And the only Jews that he put in the concentration camps were these Orthodox Jews.
Do you think he was working for the Talmud Jews, maybe?
Absolutely.
Hitler was working with him. Oh, wow.
Yes. And that adds a really different perspective. And people really need to understand, how he was half Jewish himself, an Austrian Jew, like his real name being Schicklgruber. It really adds to the point how he really teamed up with this Zionist faction to, people always go, oh, well, he wrote Mein Kampf, but never forget his second book was called My World Order. He wanted the same thing. And I think, ultimately, like he wanted to get enough ground to eventually one day pull away from the Zionists. But keep in mind, the Zionists that lived in Germany at that time were the Rothschilds, the Warburgs, the Krupps, the Schiffs, like a lot of, the world's most richest people who created these central banks came from Germany, and they were right on board with funding his whole operation. And I find it very interesting how even in the Freemasonry lodges, their plan for the 3 world wars goes right in line with everything we're talking about right now.
So at the very core of this, and you told me on the phone the other day, this is Luciferian. This at the very core of all this, it's Luciferian.
Yes. At the very core, it's just Babylonian mystery school Luciferianism at the very core. It's not globalism. Please get off that word, you info warriors. Please understand, like, this is not globalism, it's Zionism. And if you really go at it from that frame of mind and dive into that research, you're gonna see it. Because I can't even listen. I used to listen a lot to Alex Jones just to, keep my ear on the controlled opposition, but it's just the lies every day. It's just like, it's just too much. It's just like, I can't. Now with Chase Geyser, a 32nd degree Mason hosting these shows, it's so obvious, who buys this stuff. my fiance, she's from the Philippines, and we were back when we were living in Beverly Hills. We turned on Roku, and I saw Infowars was on Roku back in 2020, which I don't think it is now. And I sat her down. I was like, hey, give me an hour every time. Like, listen to this guy. What do you think about this? And so we sat there with our lunch, and she listened to an hour, and I turned it off. I go, what do you think? She goes, like, who believes this? Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, people believe this? This is infomercials, not Infowars.
Wow.
Yeah, and this is a very highly educated, traveling nurse from the Philippines who's never, seen anything like this. But she's from the Philippines. She's very highly educated, got her American citizenship, and the first time she ever saw it, she's like, "People believe that? Like,
Wow.
really? Like, because she knows, like, before, when we first started talking, she knew who.
So she's not like me love you long time. She's different.
She's very informed and very different, but I like it. That's awesome. But yeah, it's just like I'll even take it up a notch in her little accent, which is adorable. She was just like, people believe that? Like, people really like that's infomercial, not info wall. I mean, she's a smart
you got it
cookie.
down.
Yeah, dude, because she is just brilliant, and she knows, like, she can see right through deception. Like, being a nurse on a, I think, I believe she's an RN. I probably could have that wrong, but as a nurse, you gotta, decipher a lot of lies in people, because when people say, "Oh, they're in pain,"
maybe she does, but the ones that I know here, they fell for everything, hook, line, and sinker.
Well,
are you getting vaccinated?
Different.
You need to get, this is just.
Yeah, she gets told a lot of lies through these homeless people who overdose on drugs and get free healthcare through Obamacare, and she has to discern, whether they're telling the truth or not. And she just watches that, and she was just like, "People are really." That's like she goes.
Well, she's got a good bullshit detector.
Oh yeah, real good. Like, probably better than me.
So, through my awakening process, I remember that I kind of went away from the Bible, right? As I think most people naturally do when you're becoming awakened, right? I kind of went away from it.
Big mistake.
You're right.
Big mistake.
Correct. And I did, though. I'm going to say I did. I went into the extraterrestrial thing, interdimensional beings. I even went to the Mason Lodge. I wanted to be a Mason for a while. And then all of a sudden my faith started coming back to me. When I went into the lodge, I was like, this is pretty dark. I don't like it. It doesn't feel right to my soul. And I went right back to the Bible, and it's just all went right full circle for me. And the more I dive deep into this and start learning about giants, and I start learning about, I realize everything to me is a lie. Everything has been a lie to me. Everything. And it's all been controlled by high-level Masons. And I understand that now. I used to want to be a part of that because I thought they knew the truth. They were illuminated. And it was up to us, to be illuminated. You have to seek this for yourself. Find the truth for yourself. And then it dawned on me. And I can't. And I've never heard anyone tell me this. But I remember this voice in my head when I was at the Mason Lodge, and it was like, any secrecy held from humanity is evil by nature.
Absolutely.
So and that just hit me, and I was like, there's my answer. And I walked out of there. I was like, I don't want any part of this. Anytime you have to hold anything secret from humanity, your brother, you're evil. It's fucking evil. Yeah. And that was it to me. And that's when I walked away, and I was like, I don't need this. I'm with God. I want to save my soul. I'm not into being part of any fucking Nicole group and wear a robe and suck each other off. I don't know what they do, but you know what I mean? That's not my thing. So let's talk about that for a second. You went to the Mason Lodge. Now I'm going to guess, you said you infiltrated them, but can you be honest on my program? Did you fucking go there just because you wanted to be a Mason? And then as you went further and further into it, you're like, maybe this ain't for me. What really, but I don't know. Did you infiltrate it on purpose, or did you just decide later on you didn't want to be a part of it?
Well, let's get down, you're an athlete. I'm an athlete. Let's talk to each other like athletes.
Okay.
Let's bro out here, man.
Let's bro out.
Oh yeah. Let's bro down hard. And I'm gonna give it to you straight up.
Okay.
after I got out of my professional wakeboarding career and blew my knee for the third time, because that's just the cardinal rule of wakeboarding. You get 3 ACLs and you're done. 3 strikes,
Yeah.
you're out. And I did that, hit my third ACL, so I was done. And my parents, they have a construction company in Washington, which is very successful with a lot of employees. But sadly, me and my stepfather who owns the company, we had a really bad falling out. And overnight, I was kicked off the property, kicked out of the company, and basically living homeless. So, I've kind of fumbled in my mind, like, at that time, like after doing all these interviews on Coast to Coast and InfoWars and a few other shows, like what's my next step going to be? And I decided not to write a book because I'm way too young, because I want to write one powerful book and that be it, but I'm only 40 years old and I have no like strength and conviction in my heart to do that right now, because I'm learning things every day. And also the thought came across, like, do I want to start a YouTube channel? And I was like, no, I'm not very electronic or computer savvy, and the things that I want to talk about, it'll eventually get shut down. So I didn't go that route. And I was thinking, what if I, infiltrate the brotherhood and see what they know? And so that was fumbling around in my mind for a while. But then with this fallout with my family, kind of like how Bloods and Crips will say, like, out of their anger towards their father. Yeah, out of anger towards their father or their families, they run to a gang, and they seek gang protection. And that's when I went to the first lodge I went to in Tacoma, near Proctor Street. Kind of had that mentality. I was like, yo, I'm kicked out. I'm homeless. Let's join
like
up
a rebellion thing.
Yeah, and when I went in there,
and you were probably curious because your dad wrote this book, None Dare Call It a Conspiracy. So you were led to this.
Yeah, because you can only watch YouTube so much, and you wake up in stages with YouTube at first, watching documentaries, but sadly, most people never break out of that.
Yeah.
And the first thing I did was read the King James Bible front to back, because I knew early on, like, if I don't break free of the documentaries and start reading books, I'm really not going to learn anything, because the books is where you find the meat, like the whole like real stuff. Like, the documentaries are just a gloss over, but when you read the books, that's when it really gets into depth. And so I go to the lodge and ask them, out of anger and rebellion, what's it going to take for me to be a Mason? They're like, well, we recommend you read these, but also there's this thing called the Oath of Light. We make every member, swear to our lodge. And right there, I knew what it was, because I've heard about that on documentaries, and I knew this Oath of Light was basically, swearing yourself over to them with the blood oath. And I know in first degree Masonry, to not reveal the secrets, if you do reveal the secrets, the oath is you swear on thy head that if you do reveal it, you get slit from ear to ear, your tongue ripped out, and your body buried at low tide. But when they told me about this oath, and luckily, thank God, I read the King James front to back before I did this, because without the knowledge of the scriptures, I would not have made this connection. Jesus said, never swear an oath on thy head, because you cannot make one hair either black or white. And for regular people, that would just blow over. But for me, it made me realize that Jesus knew what he was talking about. His choice of words made me realize that this Masonic brotherhood is older than we could ever possibly imagine. Jesus knew that these occultic factions and groups were going on the checkerboard and were swearing on thy head. And Jesus said, never swear on thine head, because all oaths come from the dark side. And because I knew that, and because I had knowledge in the scriptures, I knew what it was. So, and I go, thank you for your time, da, 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 da. And I come out of there thinking, okay, how am I going to get in there without taking that oath? Like, how am I going to do it? Like, without taking that oath, how am I going to get in there and know what they know? And it just dawned on me. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go the long route and read all these books, and just I'm gonna have, because when you and me as an athlete, we see a goal and we
Yeah.
know it's going to take years to achieve like the level we want. As
Right,
athletes,
right.
we understand that we're used to that commitment of doing things on a daily routine to ultimately get to where we want in our sports. And I kind of just, luckily, I had that athletic mindset and that experience to take the Freemasonic infiltration and apply that to what I wanted to do, because you hear about all these Masons coming out and exposing the lodge, but the problem is they already took the oath, like Bill Schnopelin
Right,
and
right. So once you
Alpine
take the oath,
Childs.
is it like, I mean, you cannot ask for Jesus. You can always ask for Jesus to come back in your life. I mean, or is it
Well,
like
it's
cut and dry
it
right there?
borders
I mean, you're
it,
giving
it
your
really
allegiance.
borders it really borders on the one unforgivable sin, and that's blaspheming the Holy Spirit, which is knowing that Jesus exists but turn your back on him. And I think these guys who are exposing Freemasonry, who have taken the oath, I think they're having a real crisis of conscience, and they know what they've done is very wrong. And it's even
But
said
I mean,
in
every
Matthew
sin is
7.
forgivable. I think everything.
There is one unforgivable according to the scripture, and it's also very prevalent in Matthew chapter 7, how many who receive judgment in front of Christ will say, Lord, Lord, didn't I do all these good deeds in your name? And to some of them, he'll say, be gone from me, you worker of iniquity, I never knew you. And that's really going to apply to a lot
So
of these
anyone who
Masons.
swears this oath, that's the unforgivable sin.
I say, like I said before, it teeters on it. It's getting dangerously close to it. I've read everything, the scriptures that we have available. I've read the Apocrypha front to back, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi Library,
So
4 different versions of the Bible. I can't find God's forgiveness and his exceptions or rules anywhere, but I will say that oath teetered too close on the line for me for the unforgivable. Because I knew Jesus was real, and I'm not gonna make this oath to Lucifer, which is called the oath of light, the bringer of light, the bringer of knowledge, who they call the great and grand architect. I'm not going to swear myself over to him.
So let me ask you this. I have friends that are 32nd degrees. I know people that are 33rd degrees. And they all think that it's just they're some of the sweetest people I've ever met. The 32nd degree said that, and I'm not standing up for them. I'm not a Mason. I'm not standing up for them. I'm just trying to think here. The 32nd degree said he wouldn't be a 33rd degree because he wouldn't turn his back on Christ. So can you be a Mason all the way to the 32nd degree and still be good with Christ, or is it only until you go into the 33rd?
Well, it's very interesting that you asked that, because the 4 holy books of the 33rd degree, one of them is the King James Bible. And when you get up to that, like, luckily, I was able to see these 4 holy books and be shown these 4 holy books, and they say, choose your path. And I chose King James. So that's absolutely true. But also at the same time, what you have to understand about these high ranking Masons is that when you get up to that level, required reading, a big book of required reading is this book called Morals and Dogma, which is basically the Bible of the Scottish Rite, written by Albert Pike. And he says very clearly in that book, that Lucifer is the giver of light, because all in Masonry, it's all about receiving light, in the amounts and degrees of light.
And he also mapped out the 3 world wars, correct? I mean, supposedly.
With Giuseppe Manzini in 1871, he mapped out all 3 of them. And
which we are in the 3rd now, correct?
Yeah, we're actually coming into it because, they make a very strong, valid point. In the 3rd World War, they're going to have this social cataclysm between these nihilists, these savage nihilists, and this Christian movement with no compass and direction. And it just fits perfectly into the realms of BLM versus QAnon. QAnon, they have a lot of truth to it, but they don't know who or where the information's coming from. But they know, like, these are satanic elites killing children, but they don't know where the information is coming from or who QAnon is. It's just, and it's funny how, during my infiltration, whether it be the dinners, the rituals, or the book studies, you go out drinking with some of these Masons and they'll just chuckle to themselves like, oh yeah, QAnon, what a beautiful.
That's where they spill it all.
Yeah, that's where you get a few whiskeys in these guys and they loosen up, outside these book studies and these dinners and rituals. Like I got a lot of truth out of those guys, staying up till, closing time with these guys because they'll let loose. They're like, oh yeah, QAnon, that was beautiful. Just like 9/11, that was all
So
us.
these guys are all in for this. They're all part of it.
Well, I wouldn't say all of them. I met, like you were saying, how they're nice people. I met some of the most beautifully hearted people in Masonry who are actually, some high levels. A lot of them, a lot of them don't know what really is going on, but a lot of them do. And I would say the highest ranking Mason I ever met was probably the kindest, most warm, caring person I've ever met. Like, as someone going to complete strangers, like, he was an amazing gifter of charity and just amazingly kind to other people. But at the same time, he was a fifth degree in the Order of the Golden Dawn, which is a very dark occultic group. And he was a 33rd himself, but he was so far beyond Masonry. He was in the realms of the upper echelons of the occult. And he was definitely probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And I think that really goes into, what I learned about these four holy books, that really, charity is a big part of Masonry. So hence you have these Shriner hospitals, giving billions of free healthcare to these children all over the world, just giving all this expensive healthcare to all these children because they really make it a big issue to build up this charity shield among the public. So when people call them out on what they truly are, they're like, "Oh, you're crazy! Look at
They hide behind that."
Yes, just like the Zionists hide behind that group of Torah Jews. It's all putting up a front, putting up a front. And granted, a lot of them don't know what's going on, but the ones that do, man, they are just so comfortable in their skin about it. It is like I talk to some of these guys. I'm like, wow, dude, like I really want to buy you a steak. Like I just want to take you out, have a drink with you, and just pick your brain, man. Like,
wow.
Yeah, because
so they don't. Do they not believe in hell? Do they not believe in an eternal punishment? Or are they just like, that's all just whatever?
Well, the self-admitted Luciferians, which they call themselves pagans in these Masonic lodges, they fully have this mental gymnastic and this justification for like the power and the prestige and the people that they get to meet. And they think it's because they all are aware, they have to do some time in, the bottom realms.
What do you mean they have to do time?
Well, you're not going to meet a Luciferian out there who doesn't know about the 1,000 years of in the pit. You're not going to meet one because Luciferians know the Bible better than the Christians. That's what I've fully discovered and thought was very interesting. Like,
so they know God wins, right?
Well, they say that he wins at first, but they fully make this mental gymnastics how after 1,000 years in the pit and they rise up again to take on their final battle in the Valley of Megiddo, they feel that with enough numbers they can pull it off because they feel that their whole cause is to give Lucifer his second shot against Michael. Like they're all about giving him a second shot.
Rematch.
Rematch, baby. Yeah, and you as a boxer.
So so that 1,000 years is coming where they get.
Oh, absolutely. It's on the way because they know,
So they know they're going into this pit of hell and they're willing to go down there or wherever.
Yeah.
But is hell an actual place for them or is it just a void of God? What is hell to these people? Do you know?
I
wouldn't want to be there for 30 seconds, for a second. Right. So, I mean, I don't know how they're determining that 1,000 years is a pretty good, nice little like resort.
I kind of look at it. I look at it as a drug dealer who's, has a bit of the good life and makes the fast money, but he just feels like little stints in prison are worth it. I'd kind of relate it to something like that.
They're maybe not. They're not understanding the magnitude of this. I mean, you can't turn against your creator. I mean, it's just nonsense. It's just dumb. It's just dumb.
Yeah,
God, excuse me, but
yeah, it's just a real big mental gymnastic, and they feel that, a lot of these guys who I met, they feel it's worth it, and that's up to them. But me personally, I know it's not. Like me personally, I don't care how much money, prestige, or power, or toys, or whatever you're gonna throw at me. Like, I'm not going to turn my back on the truth, because living as a former professional athlete, the truth is all we have. And
Yeah,
I know,
I'm the same way, especially being a fighter. To be honest with you, especially being a
yeah,
fighter.
you live in life, you live your life in the truth that every action has a reaction, and your choices, there's always consequences to your choice. And us being professional athletes, we know that full and through. I mean, how many weekends and Saturday nights were we going to bed early and
Yeah.
waking up on the weekends and working out and going to the gym at 5 in the morning and eating healthy and not drinking, because we had to live our life in that truth. And I think as athletes, we can really understand, like, there's you can try to bullshit yourself either way.
There's a
as
lot
much
of
as you want.
athletes that are Masons too, man. I see Shaquille
Yeah.
O'Neal showing off his ring. I see a lot of actors, and there's a lot of high. I mean, these people are up there, and it's disturbing to me that they because people will do anything for power.
Yeah, not me though. I just
What
I'm cool with what I got, and I really feel that
let's
because
talk
I came
about for a
from
second.
Order
Let's
filled.
talk about what we talked about on the phone when you said the actual ritual of which you would betray Christ, the cockaroo, or what is it called?
Well, I was invited to the Order of the Golden Dawn after I was showed the four holy books to that, high-ranking Mason in Los Angeles. He invited me to the Golden Dawn.
Can we talk about that for a second, or do you not want to talk about that? Do you want to talk
Sure,
about that?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay, so
absolutely.
let's backtrack a little bit. You went to a place in LA where you start with that story and then go into when you were invited to the ritual.
Well, after years of infiltrating Freemasonry, I got up successfully to the rank of third-degree Master Mason. And at this, after a few years of that, and attending the rituals and the dinners and a few occultic esoteric book studies, I was actually pulled aside by some 33rd degree who kind of he caught me. He was like, "Hey, I know who you are. I know who your dad is. I'm not gonna, expose you for what you're doing, but I just gotta say that I've been in masonry my whole life and was raised to the Demolay Society, and I just gotta say I'm extremely impressed about you doing what you're doing. I know your heart's in the right place, and it must have taken you a long time and a lot of reading to do what you're doing. And I want you to meet me at this place."
So these people really believe they're on the good side.
Well, like I was going to get into, like the 33rd degree, when you're shown the four holy books, you're actually given four different paths. And when he showed me these four holy books, because he told me to meet him somewhere later that week, and I didn't know where he wanted me to go. And so, after we have our conversation, I kind of look up on my phone the address that he gave me, and I found out it was the 32nd degree Masonic Temple in LA County, right there on Wilshire Street. Beautiful lodge. And so I go there, and he's there with two other of his buddies, and they show me the four holy books. And it's so funny how these four holy books, you can buy all these at your local Barnes and Noble. We see them every day. It's just like there's nothing like secret. These are not like books that are just hidden. These are all in your local Barnes and Noble, and it's really funny how all their occultic secrets, just like everything they do, is out in the open for everyone to see, but only the initiated truly understand what it is. So, yeah, I was shown.
So you were shown the four holy books. Can you say what they are?
Sure.
Yeah.
There's King James, the Holy Quran, the Bhagavad Gita with the four holy Vedas right underneath it, and the Book of the Law by Aleister Crowley. Those are them.
Aleister Crowley, huh?
Mm-hmm.
The Luciferian.
Yeah.
Wow.
His book is one of the four holy books.
So you go meet this guy in LA. He shows you the four holy books. What happens after that?
Well, him and his two friends, they explain to me what they mean. Their, occultic significance, how they relate to the four elements of the earth and the four angels of the apocalypse, and how they have these pretty much what they were telling me, that the ancient secret of masonry is what they call the force, or what the Chinese would call chi, or what the Hindus would call prana, or the Nazis would call vril. Just what they call the force is basically, what we hear about every day with chi, prana, Reiki, same thing.
Like when you're in the flow, when you're in like the ebb and flow, when you're like, I understand it because of boxing. Like a lot of people would always say, you understand your body's synergy, you understand chi.
Right, same thing, but they call it the force.
Like Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's no surprise. Like, I remember at the Santa Monica Lodge, I saw George Lucas's little picture right there in his Masonic regalia, and that's another thing I got out of Masons at late nights drinking whiskey, and they were just like, "Oh yeah, Lucas took our secret and just flipped it into a science fiction novel." And I think that made me realize, like, wow, there's a lot of truth to it, but people don't realize how true that is. And that kind of, I think it naturally brings them over to that interest in that story, because there's a lot of truth behind it, which they don't know about. But
Masons believe they control the dark and the light, correct?
Masons believe, yeah, that the knowledge of the occult is all about how you use it. You can use it for good or bad. And I really realized that when
that makes a lot of sense to me, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, when they describe these force powers and what each force power was with each of the 4 holy books, it made me understand that, wow, like this knowledge can actually be used for a lot of good. But sadly, the people at the highest echelons of these occult societies are using it for terrible means and for a drastic, terrible end. Because at first, when I got into all this research and my first awakening, it didn't make sense. It was just like, okay, what's up with all this fluoride in the water? What's up with all these incested bloodlines? Like, what's up with all the control and all that? But when I realized, like, wait a minute, if these guys are Luciferians, their ultimate end game is the Antichrist. And that's what made everything make sense. And then from that, it made me literally run to the King James, getting off these YouTube documentaries. And once I read the King James front to back, it was as clear as day. It was like, wow, like all these prophecies, we're actually living these things. We're actually living in the latter days of the end times since the creation of the country of Israel, which was prophesied in the Old Testament. It made everything make sense. Because if you think, I just couldn't put it together at first. It's like, why are they doing this? But then I realized, it was like, okay, if they're into Luciferianism and making all these structures in Washington, D.C. from aerial view, make these occultic demonic symbols, and then you have the incested bloodlines, then you have all this control, then you have all these toxins in the food and the water, like what is it all leading to? But then when I realized, like, it's for the Antichrist, it made everything make sense. And that's what just, because I tell my family this, I'm like, I envy you guys for finding Jesus or finding God. That wasn't my experience at all. I didn't find God or Jesus. I found the reality and the truth of Satan. That's what really got me going, because I knew Satan exists, Jesus exists.
Yeah.
It's got to be one or the other. And because I found the truth of Satan, that made me run to the scriptures and made me just spend the next almost 3 months reading it every day. And I didn't stop till it was finished, because I can't invest my knowledge and time and belief in something without knowing what it is. I think people who do that, it's kind of like, you should read that, because you might be missing some things, So, but me as an athlete, there's no bullshit meter to me. I know that there is no gray area with athleticism. You either do it or you don't. And when I came to the reality that Jesus is real, I just ran straight to those scriptures, and I didn't stop till, I went from Genesis to Revelation. I didn't, and all my friends are like, where you at, dude? It's Friday night, it's whiskey and steak night. It's like, hey man, I'm working on something right now. You guys gotta, let me do
you
this.
think this whole QAnon thing and the Christian thing, the BLM thing, they're just purposely creating these groups to divide us and have us fight against each other?
Well, it's goes perfectly with the plan of the Third World War of Freemasonry.
Albert
Written in
Pike.
1870. Yeah, if you look at the Third
So
World War,
is this whole, and I'm, a lot of my audience will be like, no, but I mean, let's just be honest here. Is that what this MAGA movement is? Is that what Trump represents? Is he part of the division?
I was telling this to Greg Reese the other day. It took me literally sitting there at my home in Beverly Hills at the time, watching Trump get on that helicopter and waving to everyone goodbye and flying away without pardoning Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. That made me realize he's in on it. And I really feel with him, marrying his daughter off to the Kushner family, which is like 3 times richer than the Trump family could be. The Kushners, which made the biggest real estate deal in New York.
This is terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the Kushner family. They bought that building in New York on Fifth Avenue with the address of 666, and that was like the biggest real estate deal in Manhattan history. And it was all, a purchase of the Kushner family. But what's interesting to me is that building on Fifth Avenue with the address of 666 is where the headquarters of Lucent Technologies is, which is the company that's making this human implantable RFID chip.
Come on.
Yeah.
Say that again. The address that Kushner's in is the same address as what?
Well, it's not Kushner's in there. It's his family that owns that building. And that building of 666 on Fifth Avenue is where, to this day, the company of Lucent Technologies, which is making the human implantable RFID chip for the coming digital money system, that's where their headquarters is located. So it's just no.
I mean, that right there pretty much sums up everything to me. Wow.
Yeah, that just tells me everything I need to know about Trump. I mean, he tries, I learned that through the Space Force disclosure of why he created Space Force was a very great thing for the world. But, it's sad to say that he's in on this. Why else would he, keep promoting the vaccines after all the evidence we have? Why else would he create Operation Warp Speed? I just strongly believe that he's an elite with a small human conscience. And yeah, I believe he's fully in on all this. Yeah.
Explain the ritual. We talked about it on the phone, the ritual of betraying Christ. The Masons, the cockaroo, or what's it called?
The killing of the cockerel.
Yeah, the cockaroo, cockadoodle-doo, I don't know. The killing of the cockaroo.
Yeah, I was told this by a few other high degree Masons because when he invited me to the Golden Dawn, I was prepared for this because the guys who showed me the 4 holy books, they just prepare me like, even though you chose King James, and when you choose King James, you don't ascend above the higher levels of Masonry.
Oh, so everyone has their own. Hold on. So does that mean out of the 4 books, whatever book you subscribe to, you have to do some kind of ritual to turn away from that book?
No, it's basically or
is they all doing the cockerel? I mean, is it all
no,
someone that doesn't, let's say someone wants to be a 33rd degree Mason that's a reads the Torah or Islam, do they have to turn away from their God, or is it just Jesus Christ?
Well, you have to understand is that when you are shown these 4 holy books and they tell you to choose your path, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Book of the Law, if you choose one of those 3, you can ascend up higher. But if you choose the King James, you can't. And what people really need to understand about Masonry is that it's what it is. It's a screening process.
Hold on. So if you subscribe to one of the other 3 books, it's kind of like a fast track.
Well, it's not a fast track. It's basically letting the Masonic Lodge know where your heart lies, because if you choose one of those 3 paths, you can ascend higher up into the realms of the occult. Because in the higher realms of the occult, you have to really do some.
But if you choose the King James Bible, what happens?
You stay where you're at, 33rd, and you don't ascend. And they were telling me, they're like, okay, you're gonna get approach someday, you're going to be offered to go higher, but just don't do it, So when I did get offered to go higher to the Coven of the Golden Dawn, I fumbled around with it for a little bit and asked some other high-ranking Masons, like, what does this entail? And they were telling me about this ritual of what they call the killing of the cockerel, of how the initiation ritual of neophyte or first degree Illuminatiism or Illuminism above Freemasonry is, and this is, I didn't get told how it works in the OTO or the Rosicrucians, but when I asked about the Golden Dawn, they were telling me that the ritual entails of a sacrifice of a rooster, pouring the blood into a chalice, taking a drink, and before you swallow, you spit it on the cross and renounce Christ, and then you drink it again to seal your conviction.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which would be completely
Blasphemy of the spirit.
yeah. And that is an unforgivable sin.
That's the one unforgivable. Yeah. Yeah, makes your skin crawl, don't it? Yeah, sure did mine. And when I brought this case to Project Veritas and signed their informant contract, they asked me, "Are you willing to go higher?" I'm like, "No, dude, I'm not. I got my limits." But even they turned me down. I brought this information to Project Veritas. I still got their informant contract I signed, still have it. Brought this information to James O'Keefe, Alex Jones at Infowars, and
well, they're
I've
probably
noticed,
Masons themselves, so they're like, why would
that's
we
what
let
my
these guys?
mentor, Fritz Springmeyer, who wrote Bloodlines of the Illuminati, was telling me. He just keeps reminding me. He's like, anyone who has a big platform in this realm of research, they don't have that platform just for no reason. They have it because they are.
Well, I don't have a big platform, so well, it's
Well,
big.
you're not
Yeah.
making tons. The only money you make is off your fans. But like
Yeah.
Alex Jones and like James O'Keefe,
Yeah.
I mean, they got so many outside investors and so many outside sponsors. It's just like, it's all about money to these guys. I mean, and it really surprised me because James O'Keefe says, be brave, do something. Project Veritas. Well, I'm sitting there.
Yeah,
I'm be brave, and
as being a fighter and getting in the ring, you expose yourself. Whatever your faults are, whatever your strengths are, you get in the ring and it's just you and that other man in front of thousands of people that can't do it, millions of people that choose not to do it. That to me is my initiation in a way, because putting myself out there in front of everybody and trusting God to go out there and be a man, be a warrior, be a gladiator and fight was my initiation to me to be battle tested and be a fighter for the people, be a champion. And a lot of these guys that are Masons or whatever they're doing, or the highest levels, their soul's never been battle tested like that. It's just so to me, this is all shortcut, man. It's to me, I'm a warrior for God, and I want truth, and that's it. That's it.
Me too. Me too. Because when I was a pro wakeboarder, it's just between you, the boat, and the conditions at that time, and whether they be good or rough conditions, man, you really have to mold yourself with the surrounding environment around you to, pull off your maneuvers.
I'm just surprised on how many athletes buy into this shit, man. It's like, to me, it's just not worth it. I mean, it's just, even if there's just this much chance that you're wrong, fuck, it ain't good enough. That's not enough, and to just, it's not worth it to me.
It's not me.
I'm gonna try to get you on some other platforms. I'll reach out to some people.
I really appreciate that, man, because I'm trying to spread this message, and it really, it really shattered me for a while how I brought this to Project. I can understand Alex Jones because I know, dude, I know what he is, and that didn't surprise me at all. But when I brought this to James O'Keefe, I thought he was really in the fight. But then, he told me in a message like, "Oh yeah, that's just not a hole we want to go down." Even after I signed his contract and set up an appointment with him to meet me on Hollywood Boulevard to explain to him all the occultic architecture and Jimmy Kimmel's Masonic Lodge, where he films from, right across the street from where the red carpet gets rolled out. I was ready. I was waiting for him down there, ready to explain to him all this. And
but what happens to them if they're part of the Masonry? Or they probably just wanted to see what you knew.
Well, my mentor Fritz was just telling me, he's like, don't be surprised, because you have to understand, like, the reason why, just like Alex Jones, the reason why these guys aren't dead or in jail is because they're protected in some way. Like, there's been a lot of people, including my mentor,
Order filled.
him and Dr. Ken Hovind were jailed on bogus false charges, and then
Ken
William
Hovind,
Cooper.
that's the creationist.
Yeah,
Bill Cooper as well.
Yeah, he was killed. And
Juan was friends with Bill
they didn't go into Bohemian Grove.
Right, exactly.
Like, they did a lot less stuff. They were just putting up, debates and conversation and speaking certain things. But that's the thing. It's just like, dude, if you're gonna go into the Grove, it's just like, whoa, like that is just some. And I like it how Alex was being interviewed by T.I. the rapper, and T.I. got him to admit that he actually, was let in. He didn't sneak in. He was let in.
Who said that? T.I. did?
Yeah, T.I. Everybody go watch that interview with Alex and T.I. And T.I. gets him to admit. So you actually didn't sneak in. You were let in. And Alex.
So T.I. was like talking shit then. T.I. was like, is T.I. Mason? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know either. I don't know either. And
I don't know about anybody anymore.
Well, during my Masonic infiltration, I met some, rock stars and A-list celebrities. I don't want to reveal their names because anonymity is their right to have, it's just, but I did see, some A-list actors, and sat at a table with a very high level music producer, and, met some very, big rock stars, and, out of, I have no reason to go against them and expose their names, but the people I met in Masonry are very interesting, and I was very surprised to see those people who are involved with it. And it really made me understand, like, and when you talk to these guys, man, you lose your starstruck. I'm not kidding you, within 5 minutes, because they're just regular people dealing with drug addiction, dealing with alcoholism. They have the exact same problems we do, but just with a little bit more money. Like, these are human beings. And when you talk to these guys, man, I lost that. I was like, wow, it's him. But after like 10 seconds of talking to him, I was like, wow, like, I'm not like gone, gone. Like, you're a person. And, for like, person to person, just talking to these guys. And honestly, like, I get starstruck these days, like, by researchers, like, or, reading, writing these books.
I think that's the way I am too, man. I can care less. I don't care at all. People that are in the limelight, I don't give a shit at all.
Yeah, like,
in fact, I've had people like that reach out to me. I'm like, what are we going to talk about? And it's nothing. I'm like, I can't do that to my audience. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, like the other day, I got in contact with Dylan, the map maker, and I was starstruck because I've been following this guy's work for years. And bro, like, he wrote me a text message, and I didn't even know who he was till, a week later. And then I was like, whoa, like, that makes me
it's kind of like, that's really where we're at now with this awakening process. It's like people just want truth, man. They don't give a shit. Like, more people the people that are awake don't give a shit if you're on a movie, in fact, that's a turnoff. It's like, if you're in the limelight, you're a tool. You're a fucking Satan minion. You're on the news. Oh, you're a minion. Like,
it's just like
really,
Jim Carrey said.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey said, we're not the cool kids anymore. And it's just, it's really sad.
Say that?
Oh, I remember him saying that like years ago, like how Hollywood isn't the cool group of kids anymore. And it's just, with this whole awakening process, it really, really makes me sad how people are awake, but they won't take the time to actually like read books. You throw them, they'll go as far as a documentary, and they'll form an opinion off that. Like, a lot of people. Let me give you an example.
For me, my knowledge is every time. For me, it's like every time I interview someone like such as yourself, different guests, I'm immersed in this all day long. Like that to me is my education.
Well, it's just what I'm, it's a part of my daily routine, either reading scripture or falling asleep to a documentary or a lecture, but just reading books. Like, let me give you an example. Like, a lot of people like the research of David Icke, and they'll sit there and they'll listen to like his 12-hour lecture that he goes all around the world and gives these like 11 to 12-hour lectures. But when you read David Icke's books, it's still all the same research, but then let know stuff like,
what's his book, The Biggest Lie, or
The Biggest Secret.
The Biggest Secret. I've read that book.
Yeah, that was like his first and original. That was my favorite he ever did, because pretty much everything he wrote after that is just all of that, but just spinned off into something else. I mean, he'll go all day. He'll tell you about Zionism and the Satanists and all that. But it's only when you read his books when you realize that he denies the existence and the validity of Jesus Christ, and that
denies it, huh?
Denies it, dude.
David Icke does.
Yeah, and that just made me just go, whoa. And then when you read his books, you realize that he's a very loyal disciple of the Theosophical Society from Helena Blavatsky. And that just made me go, whoa, now I understand him. And all what he's mean. He'll tell you everything under the sun, but he'll leave out the most important piece, which is Jesus Christ. I mean, which all his other homies do, like Jordan Maxwell and Michael Tessarion. Basically, David Icke, Michael Tessarion, and Jordan Maxwell, like that whole three-man, they're all disciples of the Theosophical Society and their teachings. They'll tell you everything, but they'll always deny Jesus Christ. And that, to me, is the biggest pinpoint of all of this. Like, if you just can't wrap your head around Christ, you're just going to miss the whole picture. It's kind of like, it's like us being athletes, like, building our body up. But if we take steroids, we're missing the whole aspect of the true journey and the true honesty of our sport. Because I can't tell you how many pro wakeboarders I saw fucking juicing, man. And that just, I would see him get all this.
Well, I juiced a little bit myself, but I mean, so was everybody. So.
Well, as a pro wakeboarder, I decided not to, because I saw my friends, their skulls would bubble up.
Yeah.
Like they get all these zits on their arms and their back, and like they're
good for you, man.
Well, it's just like I just see them like, nah, dude. Like I'll do my 2-a-days, 6 days a week, and not miss a leg day. Like I'll stick with that, because what you guys are doing, all you're doing is just to shave that one extra day so you can have your whole weekend.
No. I wasn't doing it to cheat, but it was definitely something to even the playing field. It was different at another level, but yeah, I agree with you though. For the most part, right?
Yeah, and plus, with wakeboarding, it's all about it's all about soft tissue. You got to have strong ACLs and rotator
that's what one thing Roids does is rip that apart.
Oh
dude.
Man, like
weakens all your tendons.
Oh man, it just makes your insides just like gummy bears,
Yeah. 100%.
No matter how much you work out, if you juicing, man, like you may look strong on the outside, but inside you are just frail. And I just looked at that. I'm just like, naturally, I'm not built big. I'm Israeli, Irish, and Spanish. My bones.
A hell of a mix.
Yeah, it's like I'm naturally not that built. I got small bones, small tendons. I'm only 5'6", and knowing that, I was like, dude, I'm not like, I don't have those big old meaty, fucking genes like you Norwegian guys got. Like, I can't.
Well, I imagine for wakeboarding, you can't be a big guy.
No, like we're pretty much like gymnasts with an extreme sports twist to it.
It's like
order filled.
Yeah, it's like water gymnastics with a board under your feet. It's takes a lot of training on the trampoline. It takes a lot of being comfortable upside down, because with the flips and the spins and all that we do, it's like it's a very acrobatic, and it really messes some people up if they don't train properly. And when I was a wakeboarder, I mean, all my dry land training was lifting weights or jumping on the trampoline. And after a few surgeries, riding my bike.
Josh, this has been very, very, very educational. None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Where can people get that book, your dad's book, just on Amazon? Do they still have it on Amazon, or is that like?
Oh yeah, I redesigned the covers of his second book and his third book. It's on Amazon. It's on Audible. It's everywhere. I can send you a link to it to read my dad's first book for free online. Like,
wow, send it to me.
Also, this information should not be. I'm not going to Alex Jones this thing where you have to pay for my work. Because if the message was really that important, it would be for free online. And I set it up in a way that, you can read it for free online, but if you want to buy it 33% goes to children's charities. So when you
Well, that number is like a Mason number.
goes,
People are gonna be like, "Hey, wait a
that's
minute."
exactly why I did that, because I chose that number to throw it back in the face of the occultists. Like, yeah, that's
This is
using good against their evil ways.
this is just, man, so disturbing, man.
Oh, you like, trust me, bro. Like, I'm just so happy for every day I have with my awesome, amazing fiance. Every day I have with her is a blessing from God, because I know how bad this is and I know how bad it's going to get. And I just thank the Lord in my heart every single day. I just want one, every day I get to be with my fiance and enjoy my time with her. And
I would say you need to start writing a book.
I've been told that too, man, but I don't want to attempt it until I got a few more years under me. Oh, before I forget, a big fan of yours. There's this great researcher. She's been following my research for years. She has a mother who's a huge fan of yours. She's a subscriber to your show, and she made me promise to read something to you.
Oh, shit. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, she says she wanted me to tell you that Nino, that she is a faithful fan and always enjoys watching your show because you remind her so much of her son that passed away, who fought in the military. And I think it was I think he died. I'm not specific of what happened. I think he was killed in action. But this lady, who's loves you to pieces, who watches all your stuff, she has a son that passed away in war, who she's wanted me to tell that you remind her of her son. And her name is Denise Landry. Denise Landry. Of Porter, Texas. And she wanted me to personally say how she loves you so much and that she's a huge fan. And she just can't get enough of you. And I got her address right here, so hopefully when we're done here, I can give you her address so you can send her something like
absolutely.
She had a husband and a son who gave their lives in this country for military service, and she's just a huge fan of yours. And I know that it would mean the world to her.
Let's end this right now and then give me your address.
Absolutely.
All right, folks.
All right, guys, I'm here with you. So just bear with me. I got to get all this stuff set together here. All right. So, what'd you think about that? If you're still here, fantastic. Sorry, I'm looking at my other screen here. If you heard a whole bunch of order filled, order filled, order filled type of things going on, I was actually trading, and I'm currently trading right now. Order filled. And I lost a lot of money. I lost a real lot of money. And I'm going to lose a lot more money now because I just hit the wrong button. All right, so the lesson that I learned throughout this whole hour and a half is not to try to do other things while I'm doing this. With that being said, money is money. It can be made back. However, without getting our spiritual awareness and getting our world back in order, money does not mean anything, in my opinion. This stuff is deep. It's deeper than most of us can even imagine. We're in a spiritual war. It's truly good versus evil. And that's a scary thing to think about when, I have a 14-month-old who is going to have to grow up in this world unless I, as his father, with the help of many other patriotic Americans and global citizens, can help expose this evil, and we can use the good in our hearts and minds to overshadow all the evil in the world. Over the course of the next couple weeks, I'm going to present you with many of these, let's just call them podcasts, right? I said, I don't have the access to these people. I wish I did, but maybe one day I will. So, in the meantime, I'm going to have to resort to showing you their videos. Now, a lot of this stuff you can also gather on your own. Our fingertips are the gateway to the truth. You can find anything that you want on the internet. Be very careful. There are a lot of dark things if you decide to go down that route. If you're technological savvy enough, there's stuff that once you see it, you'll never unsee it. I forewarn you, but it is there, and it's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to you. It's up to all of us. So thanks for viewing. This is Steve with The Breakout Project, and just remember, we all have the same 24. Use wisely.